There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call today's meeting to order. Number 2 on the agenda is the actual adoption of today's agenda. First of all, are there any additions or amendments that anybody? No changes requested. Can I have somebody put forward that agenda? Deputy Mayor Richardson, thank you, and a seconder. Lori Dillon-Schock, thank you very much. All those in favor? And thank you very much, that carries. When you do put your hand up, if you can do me a favor and be really, really clear, that would really help me out. Thank you very much. Number 3 on our agenda, declaration of pecuniary interests. Putting that out there, is there anybody who'd like to declare that? Seeing none, that's taken care of, thank you. Item 4, adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to go through the meeting minutes from our previous meeting. And I'm looking for somebody who would put those minutes on the table if they seem okay. Councillor Smeaton has put that on the table. Is there someone to second that? Tim Weisner, thank you very much. All those in favor of accepting those minutes, that's perfect. Thank you, that's carried. Item number 5, deputations. Do we have any deputations today? None, thank you. And correspondence. No correspondence, thank you. We're whistling right along. This is the way to do it. And we're into item 7, new business. 7.1, we're going to do a quick review of the mandate for the Cultural Centre Feasibility Task Force, and I'm going to pass it over to Donna Goodwin for that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is put on for a second time, just in the sort of in the idea that in the last month you've been able to read through, sort of think about it, sort of maturate over the 5 objectives, and if there were any questions on sort of your role or how you see the task force moving along with the initiation of phase 2 and the 5 sort of mandates, if you will. We certainly don't need to spend that much time on it. It was more just to make sure that people were all sort of understanding the role, understood their place in the role, and then also if they had any questions about the 5 tasks. That was it.
Any questions from folks? It's an interesting opportunity that we all have to be on a committee like this, but if you've never been on a committee like this, it can take some settling to sort of understand how it fits in the bigger picture. So it's very worthwhile to take the time and ask the question if you have any. And certainly if you don't have that question right now, but it comes to later, I'm sure Donna wouldn't mind, getting the question from you. Everybody okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. It helps us for sure. And that brings us to 7.2 on your agenda, which says, literally on the agenda, onboarding of the consultant for phase 2 deliverables for the proposed cultural centre as per the terms of reference for the Cultural Centre Feasibility Task Force. And for this purpose, we're actually going to have a presentation, and I'd like to introduce to you, and they're going to come up on your screen here, Stephanie Ma from Jamo Architecture, and I believe Peter Lyman from Nordicity. And if I've missed anyone else, please, if you can help us on that end and introduce yourselves. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am just going to share my screen, and then we absolutely will be introducing all of ourselves in this presentation. So just a moment, please. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yep.
We're good.
Great. Okay. I will note, it looks like on Zoom, now the screen for the council chamber, the video from me is just ourselves here on Zoom. So if there is anyone in the council chamber who sort of raises their hand or anything, I do apologize. I can't see that, it doesn't look like. So I'll rely on verbal cues if there's any questions at any point, please.
Thank you very much. We can actually, since we can see in here, if they do, I'll help you out there.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, we'll get started on the presentation, but it certainly is meant to be conversational, so please feel free to interrupt me at any point if there's any questions. So I will get started now. Really excited to be here and meet all of you. Really appreciate your time. I'm Stephanie Ma. I'm the creative director at JIMO Architects. And I'm joined here today with colleagues from JIMO as well as Nordicity, as we are excited to get started on phase 2 of the feasibility study for a cultural center. So I'll start with a quick introduction into who each of us are. At JIMO Architects, we're a Toronto-based architecture firm that works across all of Ontario. We specialize in integrating sustainability, design, cultural heritage, all into architectural spaces. We often work with existing buildings, and we've worked on all types of scales of buildings. On the slides here, there's a picture of the Oculus Pavilion, which is a park pavilion where we did not only the restoration of the building, but also community activation, public engagement, walking tours, performances, and working with the community in that way. And we've also worked on a lot of other cultural hub feasibility studies, including the first phase of this Kawartha Lakes project. So we're excited to be continuing it in phase 2. Other examples are we have worked with the city of Oshawa and the town of Collingwood on very similar cultural hub feasibility studies, and we did those projects with our partners and close collaborators, Nordicity. So I will actually, I apologize. I'm going to go back just a second. I forgot to introduce Mitchell May, who is joining me here today. He's on the Zoom. I'm going to let Mitchell introduce himself quickly and say hi to everyone.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Mitchell May. I'm an associate at JIMO Architects. Very excited to be working on the project. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Mitchell. And I guess I'll add on my end at JIMO, I tend to focus on a lot of community activation, placemaking, and cultural heritage. And Mitchell brings a lot of expertise in terms of sustainability and green building and things like that. So now we will move on to our partners on this project, Nordicity, and I'm going to hand it over to Peter and Natalia to introduce their company and themselves.
Right. Thanks very much, Stephanie, and we're pleased again to work with you. As you all know, we worked with Stephanie and her crew in the first phase, and concurrently in other projects in the GTA. It's a good relationship. We're a consultancy that specializes in the creative industries and arts and culture, which covers a pretty big domain, and particularly in strategy, policy, and economics. So you can see here the arts and creative industries. We are more and more driving towards solutions in strategy, policy, and economic analysis rather than just studies. We've had recently, over the last, 10 years, been building our expertise and experience at the municipal level, doing cultural plans and facility planning all over the country. We're probably doing about 7 or 8 of those engagements at the moment, and various other ones too. So anyway, and I'm the senior partner, actually one of the founding partners, and we'll be working closely with you. Love to have worked with Donna and Rebecca for the first round, so we're at it again. That's really great. And we our piece of this, because the tables have turned now that JIMO is a prime because of the nature of the job. We'll be looking at the facility from the point of view of the economics, the operational numbers for it. Try to provide some early financial statements, not statements, but estimates of revenues and expenses, and also looking at fundraising capacity in the community and working with the city and other fundraising efforts. So a lot of working with the city, its staff itself, as well as some members of the community, which we can certainly talk about later. So I joined on this call, but we have a couple of other people working on it. But Natalia will be project managing our end of it, and I invite you to listen to her introduction.
Thanks, Peter. And hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. As Peter mentioned, my name is Natalia Alexa. I'm a senior consultant with Nordicity in their Toronto office. And I've been working quite heavily over my career here in the municipal, cultural, and facility planning realm. So again, I've also been a part of the teams that worked with JIMO on other cultural facility planning projects in Collingwood and across Ontario. So looking forward to continuing our work here in Kawartha Lakes. Oh, and of course, I was a part of phase 1 on this. So similarly excited to see it through its next phase.
Great. Thanks so much. So going to the next slide. So as we all mentioned, JIMO and Nordicity were involved in phase 1 of this feasibility study, which means we're really excited that for phase 2, we'll be able to really just build off of that and get moving quickly. But before we jump into what the phase 2 will look like, I thought it would be helpful to just do a really quick reminder review of what phase 1 findings were. The report is available online. I'm hoping or trusting that you've all looked at it already. It is quite a long report. I think it's around 70 pages, so I'm not going to be going into the details of that, but did just want to highlight some of the key findings of it, which were that Kawartha Lakes is indeed in need of both a new cultural center and an archives and curatorial facility. And there's a lot of different community and programming needs that were outlined in phase 1 that we found through different community consultations. So desired features. And from that, we looked at what is the square footage size required for a facility to meet those community needs. And that's what this chart is of. It's from the phase 1 report. And it's sort of a summary of the type of programming that is either a must-have or a should-have or could have, and then a range of size for each of those. And then those get added together, which puts us at the 2 options: a medium-scale cultural hub facility or a large scale. So this is all in that report. And then in addition to that, there was a standards and guidelines set out, design guidelines for sort of aspirational features of the building. So not that we've gotten to the point of designing a facility yet, we're still at the early stages of the project, but there are things that came through clearly from the community of what they would want to see in a facility like this. So those are outlined in phase 1. And the conclusions of the findings, as I mentioned, that was a very, very brief summary. But essentially the conclusions are that since there's a need for both a cultural center and an archive space, there's this really exciting opportunity for a new facility to be built in Kawartha Lakes that combines both and allows for this creation of a transformational cultural infrastructure within the community. And again, I'm sure you're all aware of that. That's why you're here. You're really excited about that potential and opportunity, and we're excited to work with you on that. And then the other side of that was that this could be done through essentially a hub and spoke model. So understanding that there are a lot of important and valuable cultural spaces already in Kawartha Lakes, and this sort of hub, this new facility it would be one facility, but there is programming that supports the larger community and is connected to this larger network of already existing and important cultural community spaces. So where does that put us for this project, this phase 2? It's essentially what the next steps in phase 1 were outlined to be, and you'll notice this aligns very closely with this task force's terms of reference. We have, I'll call it a first step, but actually a lot of these steps overlap. We have a first step of reviewing and socializing the results of the study. So that study from phase 1, making sure that people are aware of it and are informed about it. And then the big part of this phase 2 goals will actually be undertaking further site exploration. At the end of that phase 1, we didn't land on a single recommended site yet. And so we will be, that will be a huge part of this phase 2. And we're going to be expanding what type of sites we're looking at, since previously we were looking specifically at municipally owned sites. So we'll be broadening that, doing things like looking at what the criteria of that should be. And then identifying a fundraising and financing strategy. I'm not sure, Peter, Natalia, if you want to comment on that anymore.
No, I think let's move on. We can talk about later as we go on.
Sure. And then, so those two things kind of overlap, but none of these are happening one by one. Actually, the next slide, I have a schedule, so you'll see what I mean by that. And then also the other goal of this phase 2 is refining the operating and capital cost estimates. So just making sure that we're going to be doing a lot of work in this phase 2. So the cost estimates that were in phase 1 will, of course, need to be updated. So this is a very high-level project schedule outlining what our goals and tasks are planned for the next year on this project. Essentially, we're starting now in October, and we'll be looking to start with a research plan and an engagement plan. And then we have these kind of phase 2, 3, 4. You'll notice a lot of them, the times overlap a bit. And that's because there's going to be work that JIMO is doing and Nordicity is doing at the same time. So that includes things like launching and undertaking those sharing activities of the phase 1 work, and conducting desk research to gather data points for analysis. And then the phase 3 site exploration, that we're essentially starting very quickly too. It's almost November already, so that'll be starting soon. And that first starts with developing site criteria to determine what type of site we need to be looking at. Part of that we already have started from phase 1, things like if we already know a few size ranges due to programming, then obviously that gives us limitations on what type of site we can look for, or if it's a large facility, the need for infrastructure and things like that. And then identifying and pursuing potential property owner partnerships, developing a short list of potential sites, and then assessing that short list of sites. So obviously we can't be assessing every single property in all of Bertha Lake, so we'll go through a shortlisting process to figure out which ones we should be looking at in more detail. And then overlapping with that, but still starting a little bit later after we've done data collection and research, would be the phase 4, which is starting analysis on comparable facilities, so a precedent study based on the research that we've gathered so far, rationalizing the operating costs and revenues, developing a governance model and fundraising strategy, and updating construction costs. And then finally, the last part of that is putting all of that kind of into recommendations. So developing fundraising and grant recommendations, developing operating recommendations, putting that into a draft report, and then that would go to a final report, which would then go to council. So in terms of the task force and how we can work collaboratively together, we're really excited to have all of you here as a really amazing resource for us to work with. And we're starting this meeting that was a very high level introduction. And we're thinking that a potential next meeting would be great to have in early December, so that we can, we're really just getting started now. So by the first week of December, we'll have a little bit more to go off of and talk with you about. And then some other suggested meetings are another 3, which would be one in February, one in April, and one in July. And those would be the February and April would be to review progress to date. And then the July one would be for you to review the draft report and give us feedback on that for the final report. So that is, after this, that's an additional 4 meetings. These are not set in stone. We're just recommending these to you, and we're happy to discuss after this presentation. And then in addition to those, there's also other meetings. The task force, I believe, can meet without us. And also, I believe the city is looking to organize a sort of precedent study road trip, which sounds really fun and exciting, to go look around at other cultural hub facilities in Southern Ontario nearby, which I think Donna could speak to a bit more. But yes, that's the end of the presentation. So I thought we'd leave it there to open it up to any questions that you might have for us, thoughts on these proposed meeting dates, and yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. So I'll throw it out to the folks around the table. Are there any questions or thoughts that we have for Stephanie and the folks there based on what they've given us? Tim Weisner.
First off, is this what a meeting with the consultants looks like? Is this what's happening now? Is this, sorry, my first time on a task force. Is this what that looks like, or is there a, more creative potential? Is there more time for less presentation and more back and forth or that sort of thing? Or is this how that sets up?
Donna, I'm going to pass that over to you as someone who has experience, before this.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. It's definitely more of a hybrid. Like, today's presentation is just really to introduce the consultants and to sort of give a high-level overview of next steps and timelines, and just to get a sort of feel for what the next 18, 16 months is going to look like. In phase 1, when we were working with the same JIMO Nordic City partnership, we had focus groups, we had a lot of discussion, provided draft reports that then had meetings afterwards to get feedback. The task force in 2021 was almost 100% virtual because of COVID. And so with this task force, there's an expectation that it will be much more interactive in person. But for today's meeting, because it's very high level and because it's really just to introduce the team and to sort of introduce the jumping off point, this seemed to be the most efficient. But the 4 meetings that they are suggesting, there's been no discussion as to whether they're in person or virtual, whether they're flip chart and whiteboard, or whether it's a digestion of information provided and then a feedback loop. There's lots of different ways that we can be meeting with the consultants. And now, of course, because we aren't restricted in the same way, there is certainly an understanding and expectation that they will be in the room. They weren't even allowed last time, really. So it's not, there's no rule of thumb. And it's actually kind of exciting because we will be able to have a lot more interaction. And this is really, it's really sort of where the design is happening. So I hope I've answered. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Smeaton?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that led to a question. Would you prefer if we, let's say we saw the value in using the Weldon room on camera for a brainstorming session, perhaps is where you're going, certainly where you made my brain go, one of the 4 meetings perhaps being someone from NIMO here, and we're all digging in the way that, almost you would in a school setting, right? The teacher, and mixing and having those creative chats. Would you prefer that to be a motion at a meeting, or just food for thought? And maybe this is a question for even for Deputy Mayor Richardson, her experience. Would that be something we would present as a motion at this meeting so that it's on the agenda for next, or is it something you'd prefer we just communicate, over the week and we email each other with Director Mustard? Like, what would be the way we decide in the interim how we'd like to muck around, if you will? I think one of those 4 meetings might be really neat at some stage to have that kind of once we have a little bit more going on in our heads, to the whiteboard thing that, I got excited when you said, yeah, I could sort of picture like our strategic planning meetings are.
It's putting that right in my court. The process is, as you said, it's transparency and making sure that we are doing what we're doing so everyone can be seeing where we're going and what direction. I think just from Tim's original thing is, that first phase is regarding the development research plan and that engagement plan, right? And that needs to be established. So that's the role from our consultants. So I think what they're saying is, what is our role sitting around the table for that first phase? And I think it's what is our role for each phase. And I think that's where we need to define when we're sitting around this table. And, direction from consultants, from staff, and from us is, how do we, as you said, get the whiteboard out and have those conversations so we can be creative? Because I think, this whole task force is about being creative. So
I think these are some really, really good points. I'm just wondering, is it okay if we have a discussion amongst ourselves about that after we meet with these folks? I'm thinking more for their time. Maybe it's better if we focus our questions directly to the presentation that they've given us, just so that, we sort of spare them sitting there listening to all of our stuff. Are there any other questions specifically for our presenters? Yes, Pat Murphy.
Yes. So my question is, with your list that was last up on the screen, and you're proposing a road trip in November with city staff, I put my name forward in this process to roll up my sleeves and get down to work. So I don't want to be a bystander in this process between our consultant and our city staff. I think this table and the members around it need to be in the driver's seat and direct where things are going. The grassroots community has done all of the preliminary work to get to where we are today. And the Kawartha Lakes Arts Council came to the city with $50,000 in hand to initiate phase 1 of the feasibility study. All of those grassroots workers who got us to the table today are still wanting to participate in moving this forward. So my question to you as our consultants would be, what are the tasks that we can participate in and give direction? I guess city staff and our consultants will be doing the lion's share of the work, but we're here to participate and we're here to work and move this forward. So whatever you can do in your agenda to initiate our participation, I would appreciate.
That's great. We're very excited to hear that, and it's always very encouraging when your consultants engaged in a project and you have community members who are happy to work with you and move things forward. We want to move things forward too, so that's very helpful to hear. I think I'm just going to try and go in order of points you brought up. In terms of the road trip, I believe that the city is organizing that. So I will maybe let Donna comment on that a bit more. I don't know that we have a lot of details on it yet, but I think the intention of it is to just start getting ideas to help fill that, those future brainstorming sessions we have. But maybe I'll pass it on to Donna right now to comment on that in case there's anything she wanted to add.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie, through you, Chair. The idea of doing a road trip is actually to sort of get a mind's eye of what the options are, what possibilities are, different models, different municipal, different nonprofit, so different ways of operating, whether it's a retrofit of an existing building, a brand new build. Some of them are municipally owned and operated. Some of them have a municipal funding stream to them, but they're not-for-profit operated. Some of them have multiple partners, so they bring in school boards, libraries, Rotary Center, the like. And so, because it's such a broad concept, and there can be so many things to put into it. If you're like me, who's quite a kinesthetic learner, it helps sort of, it's almost like Tetris. It helps put things together in my mind, in that you can see whether it's maker spaces, whether it's black box, whether it's commercial kitchens, meeting space, performance space, incubation space for, whether it's craft-based organizations, wedding venues, landscaping, retrofit versus build new. It's all those things, all the options that are on the table at the moment, and to actually see them in real time and see people interacting with their space. And so there are a number within kind of the GTA, even up into sort of central Ontario. And the idea or the concept is for us to do this pre-consultation in the design phase with the consultants, so that the committee the task force itself, staff, others, as we sort of figure out who would be the complement, we'd all get on a bus and we'd all go and speak to the actual owner operators. We would speak to the people who use the facility and use the spaces. We would see sort of what configurations our neighbors or other municipal structures are actually, and how it's sort of fulfilling the need or the mandate of the residents and the community and the tourist and the like. And then, so then when we do our whiteboard exercise, or we do sort of circle back with the consultants, when we're talking about design and operational and tenancy and all that, people have not just a conceptual, but an actual implementable visual as they're sort of talking through the options. So staff would organize the bus and the facilities, connecting with them. We would figure out a day that worked for everyone. We'd all get on a bus, do a bit of a tour, chat along as we go. It would be sort of considered one of our meetings. And then when we meet back with the consultants in December, we would have a much more of I don't want to say gelled, but kind of an idea of sort of, because as Pat has said, a lot of work was done from 2015 to 2019 with the Cultural Center Working Group. And there has been an exploration, but I don't think anybody's actually stepped through the door, even of the ones that were looked at. And so it's kind of a way to sort of tighten up the idea and to see the possibility. So.
Thank you. Pat Murphy. Will there be extra seats available on the bus if any members of this task force are available to go on that road trip?
Oh, it's assumed that it would be all, the task force is you're the lead players in the game. There would also be other staff like James Smith, who we should introduce, that's sitting behind you. He's the manager of building and property, and he's going to be one of the staff that supports the task force. I shouldn't say you were on a Disney cruise last time the meeting held and could not come. But so he and Rebecca Mustard, who's the manager of economic development, she's also one of the staff that's going to be supporting. We would also open it up to other staff that it might be, like we're talking about building curatorial and collections and artifact space. So then you would think that it would behoove, you would want to have Angela Fernelli as, the archivist, you'd have Laura Love as our collections officer. There's also some other organizations, our eight like art gallery, performance theater, museum, like our other partners. They may want to come and sort of see the difference or the connection or the likeness, depending on their viewpoint of what we're trying to build. So we are looking at a 50-person bus. So, there'll be seats available.
Thank you. Stephanie, was there anything else just in response to all of that you wanted to add?
I was going to just add about on the next meeting, but why don't I pass it off to Peter in case he has a comment specifically on this right now? If that's all right.
Absolutely.
No, great. Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to kind of tie into that conversation, saying that we would, for sure, in doing our work, want to speak to a number of people in the community and certainly in the city. For example, if we're looking at what kind of arrangement, which is in our remit, what kind of structural arrangement would the facility have? Would be not profit, owned by the city, whatever different combinations thereof. We'd want to know how that impacted on the potential for community funding support, and community being sponsorship or individual donors and that kind of thing. So we definitely want to speak to some people aside from this in the city itself. Some people from the community, and some of you might be in that particular area, or others, and the same with looking at the operational costs and revenues. If the facility has certain kind of features to it and functions and equipment, it's going to attract different kinds of people. It's going to have a different cost profile and that kind of thing. So we want you to get as good an understanding of what the best kind of set of features are. It was concluded from the last, as you saw in the slides, from the first phase, that there was a list of must-have, and then potentially to have. So there's still some play in that, as well as the actual size too. So the more we can get feedback from you on that, the better is going to be in terms of making the financial assumptions. How we do that, I mean, sounds like getting on that bus and spending some time with a range of people sounds pretty appetizing to me.
Absolutely. I see Councillor Smeaton has his hand up.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, through you. I'm excited to meet Peter because my experience, all of you, but experience with a room full of creative people that are passionate and all are excited about this. I can just feel the brain when we see phase 3 develop site criteria. I can actually feel all the brains go chicken or egg. It's happened so many times. So I just know that thought process for many of us, myself included, is how do you possibly develop site criteria when you haven't developed whether you're going to be hub and spoke or whether you're going to be a building? And what's comforting for me is that I can see in the 4 phases there, if I'm not mistaken, Peter, for sure, with your being a co-partner, you've been down this road with a group like us before, and you've managed a project like this before. Would it be safe to say that you've seen those kinds of conundrums play out nicely if we're patient from the beginning and sort of respect the process? Because I know that's where things get tricky, right? As we start advancing maybe our thought process a few months ahead of where we need to be. Am I making sense at all?
No, entirely. I mean, I'll just agree with you basically that it is a, a well-traveled route. I know Stephanie would see it too for architectural practice, but getting that the key decisions, and it's almost impossible to do a kind of critical path that is completely respected. At some points along the way, you make the decision to go that step, and sometimes you retreat on it. But it's the closer you can get to a consensus and a groundswell, the better it is. The better opportunity you have to make those can't back away from it now decisions.
I will also add, in terms of handling that sort of chicken and egg situation when it comes to things like site criteria, it's certainly a challenge, but I think a way that we work through it that has been successful is understanding that it is this iterative process. So there are maybe, it's not that we would have, let's say there's 10 site criteria, just making up a number hypothetically. It's not that we would come up with all 10 immediately. It might be something like we come up with the first 3, which are just kind of given in terms of like, is the property available? Like obviously if someone else owns it and is actively using it, we don't want to take it away so it's not available. So you have these first 3 standard criteria. Then we talk through these, we kind of develop not a short list, but a smaller list. And then we go through those together to kind of see what does that leave us with, what are our priorities, and it's just back and forth over and over. So it's not immediately like we land out on one. So there's lots of opportunities for there to be a feedback loop and for us to sort of assess what opportunities there are as we move ahead.
Thank you very much. Before I recognize Pat Murphy, is there anyone else at the table that has a question? Christina Carpentier.
Thank you. I was just wondering about getting a little bit more information about the types of property that are going to be looked at. There's been different comments made about not taking things away. There was something in the presentation about partnership. Donna mentioned a few things about, retrofit versus building new, and just wondered a little bit more detail about when they're narrowing things down, what types of properties are being looked at and what that might mean in terms of partnership.
So at the moment, we have a lot of everything on the table. It is, though, building off of phase 1. So we did already start on phase 1. We looked specifically at municipally owned properties. So that was kind of the only lens that narrowed down our decision making. That's still a lot of properties to look at. So it's not that it was a tiny list. But we went through those first, and the reasoning behind that was understanding that if it's municipal owned, then there isn't an additional sort of acquisition cost or process behind that. At the end of that, though, since there wasn't one single recommended site, now in this phase 2, it's opened up even further. So in terms of what the criteria is and what our research plan is for finding those sites, we haven't started on that yet. Today we're just starting on this phase 2. So at that next meeting in December, one of the things that we could go over is what we're thinking in terms of criteria and how we're planning to start looking at sites. And then that would be an opportunity for everyone to give feedback as well. Because it's completely possible that all of you maybe already have an idea in your mind of a site that you would want to make sure that we look at and things like that. And so that is completely open. Similarly with partnerships, we haven't developed a list of who those partnerships might be with. We haven't started reaching out to anyone yet. That would be part of the research plan to figure out who should we start looking at and who should we reach out to. So again, if you have recommendations maybe about partnerships we should be looking into, we're more than happy to take that input. That would actually be a very helpful thing for us to hear from you all.
And just for information, I assume if we have any ideas like that, best way to submit that is through Donna. Would that be correct?
I believe so. Donna, is that, I think that's maybe something we need to start in terms of the both research and engagement plan, just determining what the clear lines of communications are. but I think that would be correct. Donna, do you know?
Donna's very happily nodding her head, so we're good. Thank you very much. Lori Dillenshaw.
Thank you. A small note for our consultants. To the best of your ability, if we can see some of your materials in advance to our meeting, then we can access our reflective brain as opposed to automatic thinking. So I appreciate that. Now I have a request of Donna. Obviously 50 people asking questions of the places that we're visiting would be difficult. For the purposes of this task force, can we have some kind of process where we can summarize and categorize all our questions? Because there will be questions that I have specifically around costs and effectiveness of each location. Could you speak to that? Thank you.
Certainly, through you, Chair. The FAM tour, if you will, a familiarization tour, would be more, we of course would know the sites ahead of time. So then you'd be able to do your own sort of internet research, be able to see imagery, sort of get a mind's eye of where we're going. Then often you try to have the general manager, the facility manager, the site manager actually, meet the bus and give a bit of a tour. And then from there, any follow-up questions usually then go through back by email. And then they can actually send the reports, send the RFP that was set the operational plan, whatever they went through to get to where they are, that usually comes after the visit. It's kind of the process. And then at the time too, like I've done these tours before, and you try to arrange it so there's actually activity going on. It's not that it's empty and closed and it's just for us at the time. So then you're able to interact with tenants, you're able to interact with people, behind the reception desk, you're able to do that type of thing as well. So it gives more of a visitor experience, and then you sort of figure out what you're drilling down to, and then we can follow up after that with that information.
Thank you very much. And recognize Pat Murphy.
I just wanted to say that I'm happy to see that you're back at the table with us. The Kawartha Lakes Arts Council, when it initiated the phase 1 of the study, we were asked to take a big step backwards and sit on our hands and let you guys do your job. I will say that we are quite pleased with the results of the study in phase 1. And our Cultural Center Committee in the Kawartha Lakes Arts Council has not stopped working continuously for the last couple of years. So when I looked at your chart with phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, various questions that you had on the board have been addressed somewhat outside of what's going on at this table. And I would be happy to bring that information forward to the table. Some sites have been identified as possibilities, and there has been quite a number of meetings with potential partnership in the new facility, and that information should also come to the table. So again, I'm quite happy to see that you're back on board with us. I would really like to see things move forward. This whole process is about 7 or 8 years in the making to get this far. And I've kind of felt like the last year and a half, nothing has been happening. So I would encourage you to please push us, and we'll push you, and let's get this moving. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. And yeah, that's a very helpful comment, and maybe something I should have added to the question of in terms of model and what is the criteria we're looking at. I did want to be clear that we aren't, we're just starting this phase 2, so we do want to be receiving everyone's feedback. But at the same time, in terms of criteria and things like that, that was to an extent defined in phase 1 already. So we will be building off of that, and also building off of a lot of the work that's already been done by the community and been done over the last 7 to 8 years. So we definitely want to be moving this forward quickly, and we don't want to be redoing work that's already been done. So absolutely, if you saw that schedule and you thought, oh, we have answers to XYZ already, please do share that. And that helps us move this ahead even quicker. We'll still absolutely do our professional due diligence, and that will make sure that we're still reviewing everything and that we're not only looking at a narrow set of things. But if you've already have sites in mind or already have ideas for operations, we want to hear those, and that is helpful for us to build off of.
Thank you very much. I think just being mindful of time, I'd like to say thank you very much to our presenters, to all 4 of you. We certainly appreciate you giving us your time this afternoon, and we look forward to hearing what's new in December when we get a chance to meet with you again. So thank you very, very much. Have a great day.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, folks. We have a chance right now before we go on to 7.2. If there's some kind thoughts that you want to share amongst yourselves, just right now while they're fresh in your mind, might be a moment to do that. If not, we can carry on and you bring them back the next time. Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to 7.2, I believe it is. I got to accept that. Yes. Well, good for you. Good for you. Thank you. Could someone please move to accept that for information, please? Someone from the table. Pardon me? The presentation. The presentation for, yes, thank you. Christina Carpentier, and seconded by Pat Murphy. Thank you very much, all those in favor, and that is passed. Thank you very much. And thanks for reminding me. Appreciate that. So 7.3, I guess it is, isn't it? Update on the submission of the Green Municipal Fund. Donna Goodman.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have a working date of October 31st. To have final submission. We are just having all of the motions and the budget items and all of that being signed off through clerks and the mayor's office. The whole application must be sent to Municipal Affairs and Housing. There's a requirement from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Green Municipal Fund program that we contact or what's the term they use? Consult with the province on the application as well. And then from there, it will be submitted. So it's very good and timely, especially with going into the work with November and December with Norda City and Jima. So that's the update for that.
Thank you. Any questions for Donna about that? We need to accept that? It's an update. No. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that brings us to 8, choosing a date for next meeting. So, Councillor Smeaton, start us off.
Just a quick question. Next meeting is next meeting. I'm just going to express my preference, and I could very well be out of line here, but I'd like to see a next meeting and a bus tour. I've just been on committees before where the bus tour becomes the next meeting, which is a meeting of sorts, and I get that, but I just wonder if we could also schedule the next. I'm not saying they have to be like day back back-to-back days. Could we also schedule our next in-table meeting as well as our bus trip today? That's what I'm trying to say. I just know that things get crazy quick, and next thing you know, we're looking at January, and I've seen committees where time, to Pat Murphy's point, roll up the sleeves, let's go. It can vanish really quickly if just simply because of calendars.
Absolutely true. And just thinking of those two events that you mentioned, if you have a meeting specific and the tour, having those two relatively close together would be very worthwhile, I would think. So it probably comes down in a large way to the arranging of the tour, how that can conveniently be done, I would suggest.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm not really sure of the point of order for this, but we're hoping around the end of November for the tour, which would then coincide with that first week of December with the meeting with JIMO. But I can't give you a date, like a hard date for either of those at the moment. Maybe the December one.
And certainly once you get into December, we all know how things go in December. So the front half of December, like if we have an opportunity to hear from these folks again at the beginning of December, can we choose a date or are they going to send us a date, or how does that work as far as the relationship with them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, usually it's sort of a bit collaborative because, of course, we're not their only client, and of course, this isn't your only responsibility either. So I don't know if we can we do this? We can do it by email? We can set the meeting, or do we need to set the meeting?
I imagine you have to get clarification for your bus as well, right?
Are you folks okay if we do it that way? We do it through email and let Donna work some magic behind the scenes, and we'll see where that comes out?
Just for point of clarification, if there's any hard no dates, the last of November or the beginning of December, if people can share that with me, that would be great.
I just can't do the week of November 13th to 17th.
I think we are looking at more towards, because that would be only 2 weeks from now. So even just to get the sites lined up and the bus lined up and everything arranged, we probably need 3 weeks probably to do that. So.
And for myself, the 30th, I would need to be back by 4:30. So that's my only issue.
Councillor Smeaton and I are in budget deliberations the whole last week of November.
Everybody's going to be busy. You know it is what it is. How about if everybody is okay with it, just to deal with item 8 on the agenda, if we say we will deal with it through email, and we'll leave it with Donna to do that magic and reach out to us, if that's okay.
Yeah, and there is the possibility of having the tour at the beginning of the week in December and the meeting at the end of the week in December. I know it only gives it, 3 or 4 days in between, but so we just sort of pencil off that first week of December, and then we can see what we can, if that.
Eric? Sorry, Councillor Smeaton.
No, that's great. Eric's great. Just a quick question. If we, assuming that with this large a number, we're not all going to be able to possibly, let's say there was one date, as soon as you know the list of facilities, would we be able to have that list just in case I was in Innisfil and I'm, just in case, some of us might know people or be able to coordinate, or is that not kosher? I'm just thinking if I had a chance to see a facility and I wasn't able to make a trip, I would be more than happy on my own time to call the manager of facilities, but maybe there's an etiquette piece to that too, being a group and stuff, so.
Yeah, we'd probably have to sort of work through the official meeting versus just showing, right? Or, yeah, I can find out.
Okay, that said, you know, if you're ever out traipsing around Ontario and you happen to run across an arts and culture center, you know, by all means, run inside, check it out. You got nothing to lose. Take photos. Take a photo. Absolutely. Okay, so everybody is in agreement with that. Do we need to motion to do that? Because we're not setting a date. I don't think we do. I think that's it. All right, and that brings us literally to item 9, which is the end of the agenda. And so I will ask for someone to put forward a motion to adjourn for today. Thank you, Lori Dillon-Schock. And may I have a seconder? Right on, Darcy Kennedy. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Beautiful. It carries. Thank you very much, and we'll see you hopefully.